OP12 is finally here and it's going to be way different than Japan thanks to the new ban list and a new unbanned leader. So today we'll be looking at deck lists, meta, and some highlighted cards. Let's get into it. Green Zoro is the first deck, and Bandai somehow managed to make a deck that's more brain dead than Pluffy, Shanks, and all of that stuff combined. But I'm here for it. So this leader is Don X3. Basically, if it's battled with an opponent's character during the turn, you get to restand it, but you can't attack characters with an original cost of 7 or less. So what you're mainly going to do is you're going to attack your opponent's board, you're going to resend your leader, and you're going to attack into their leader. That's basically how this works. This card is absolutely insane. Thanks to cards like Tashigi and Quina, we can actually rest our opponent's units in the early game. We get to attack into it, and then we get to attack their face. So you can kind of consider this as like an aggro Lucci deck in the early game. Then once we get into the late game, one blocker is no longer enough, right? Because if we swing, like, let's say our opponent has 0 life, if we swing 15 and they block, we can just resend the leader. So stuff like this is going to be absolutely insane. Then we also have this resend event here. Luffy's the man who will become Pirate King. So imagine your opponent has a bunch of cards in hand, but they have 0 life, right? We can attack 12k, they block, we resend our Zoro, attack 12k again, boom, 3 down, resend again, right? So this card's going to allow us to have a lot of lethal potential. And we also have this card here, which, like, you get to straight up just rest 2 of your opponent's characters or Dawn cards. So, like, maybe we don't even, like, even if we didn't have this leader ability, boom, we have this new green event that lets us rest 2 units. But being able to rest Dawn is also going to be very important, especially against GP Luffy and stuff like that. Being able to rest Gum Gum Giants is going to be insane, right? So the GP Luffy player might have to leave up like 3 Dawn, which means they're attacking us less, which gives us more time to attempt to win the game. And then aside from that, this deck has some very interesting cards. So we got this new Hiyori and new Perona, and both of these search for slash cards. This card actually also searches for events, but this is going to be insane because our 9 Kazoro is actually going to be searchable. And the reason I'm 9 Kazoro in this deck list is just because of matchups like Anel and stuff like that. I'm not sure if it's shoe-in or not, but I do know that Japan used to use Hody Jones because of Blue Purple Luffy, but with Blue Purple Luffy no longer being in the meta, I think there's a real argument for just playing stuff like 9 Kazoro instead. Then obviously this new Mihawk is also nuts. You get to set up to 4 Ryudan is active, then you can't play 7 or less again. This card is absolutely insane. It's like on our 9 down turn, for example, you probably wouldn't do this, but you know, just for the sake, you can go like Mihawk and Cavendish, for example, which is going to be a very strong combo. I think mainly in other green leaders, because in this deck you can just play Cavendish on curve. But this is it for the green Zoro. Let's go ahead and get on to the next deck. Next up, we have GP Luffy, and this leader did not get hit at all, man. Like, some people thought they were going to get rid of Gum Gum Giant, which would nerf this deck, but they didn't. This deck is still fresh, and without Blue Purple Luffy as a matchup to think about anymore, we can get a lot more flexible. So for those of you guys who don't know Green Purple Luffy, basically this is a deck that just abuses Sanji Pudding. This is Sanji Pudding deck. So you get to return Dawn for leader skill, restand 2 Dawn, and then for each Sanji Pudding you have, you're gonna get an extra Dawn, and this is just gonna allow you to go crazy throughout the game. Thanks to the ban list and us not having to really tech for Blue Purple Luffy as much, now we can consider cards like 2 Sword Style. This card's going to be very, very strong against the Rayleigh deck. Being able to just pop 2 4 costs and less just like that is going to go absolutely crazy. We also have access to Dead Man's Game. So in the past, Green Purple Luffy never really played Hody Jones because Hody Jones turns off our leader ability because it says only Straw Hat characters. So having an event that functions as Hody Jones is going to be very, very strong. And then you'll see a card that I chose to include that I think this card got removed in Japan's OP12, but I added in Chopper. I think the Chopper is going to be really strong, especially against the Zoro matchup. If we can use leader ability, if we can play like Sanji on 5, leader ability, and play out Chopper, this is going to be very convenient because even if they rest on our Sanji Pudding and try to attack into it, we can just block it very conveniently with Chopper as well. And I think being able to just get back down and stuff throughout the game is very nice. But I will say this is definitely not a final deck list. There are definitely other cards to consider, like if Green Purple Luffy mirrors become popular, I would definitely consider Luna. Luna's a card I haven't experimented with against a Rayleigh, but it might also be pretty solid there. I think this is the better card against Rayleigh, but definitely Luna is definitely a card to consider. Depending on Bonnie's popularity, you might want to consider Gamma Knife as well. That way we have an actual answer to Akos Kid, because Akos Kid is still going to be very, very annoying for this deck. That's it for Green Purple Luffy. Let's get on to the next deck. For all you Bonnie Copers, here we have Bonnie again, and we're still waiting for the meta to get established. So, like the top end here is still a bit rough, but basically I'll tell you all about the new cards. So, Bonnie's a deck from way back when, so I won't need to say too much about it. But basically, when your opponent attacks, you get to rest a Don to rest one of their leaders or characters. So this deck is hyper defensive, and you even see that we have a lot of strong units here. Like Acos Kid, for example, can absorb a lot of attacks. We have this new Mihawk, which is insane. So this card is on play, as I mentioned earlier, set up to 4 read on is active. So in this deck, playing Mihawk and Cavendish on 9 Dawn is going to be pretty relevant, right? Like if you miss Cavendish on 5, for example, you can just boom, boom, slap both of these downs, and now you have an 8K and a 6K, and you were able to establish Cavendish past curve. Because one of this deck's biggest problems is that if you miss Cavendish on curve, it might be hard to establish because you would rather be playing like your top end like Kid or Zoro or stuff like that instead. So being able to get that tempo back is pretty insane. We also have this new Bonnie card, which is very lit card. If you have 8 or more rested cards, you get to draw 2 and discard 1. So because of that 8 or more rested cards, you can't actually play this card on curve, but this is going to be a very strong card to play after a Kid turn, or we can play this card in combination with our Mihawk. And having this as a way to discard bricks from our hand is very nice, right? Because as Bonnie, we traditionally don't have a way to discard bricks. We have to rely on cards like the zero cost event, for example. So having this is nice. You'll also see that I have the beige blocker as well. I just wanted to have a low cost blocker that was still searchable on Bonnie, just for the sake of our Kid plan. And this card as well is also going to be able to draw 1 and discard a card out of our hand, which once again is going to help with these bricks because 4, 6, 10, 13, 15. We do have a decent amount of bricks there. Aside from that, I think Bonnie's just in a really good position now. Thanks to Blue Purple Luffy exiting the meta, we can now really abuse cards like Acos Kid or Non-Kazoro is still a menace against a lot of different decks. So very excited to see how Bonnie will do. Let's get on to the last deck. The last deck we'll be looking at here is Rayleigh, and this is going to be one of the new aggro decks. And this one's actually very, very interesting. So, the traditional hyper aggro deck is Zoro, right? Where we have to attach it onto our leader to give +1K to our whole board. But Rayleigh has this interesting effect where we get to just reveal 2 event cards, and then one of our characters with the base power of 4,000 or less getting +2K. So this card's going to be absolutely crazy. This means that we can play Buggy on turn 1, and we can just start swinging with it off the rip. And this is going to be absolutely disgusting into slash leaders, especially like Zoro, for example, right? Like we just get to go 5K with the Buggy from the start of the game, and there's not really too much they can do about it. And this ability, it gets a lot more mileage than you think it would. And there's also a lot of strong cards in the deck. So first off, you'll see we have a lot of events. Don't worry, all of these events are actually, well, not all of them, but a lot of them are actually 2K counters. So this is a 2K counter and it's a Diable Jambe, right? That's absolutely insane. Another card here, this is a 2K counter, and it also gets additional benefit of being able to give -1 to the opponent's entire board. This even includes Green Zoro, the leader. So even if they restand it, we're getting like 2K worth of value, right? Because it's restanding. We did -1K to 2 different attacks. Like very, very strong. Armament Hockey here as well. This card allows you to give an extra +1K after already attaching Don to the leader. So I don't really know what exactly to compare this card to, but it's just an extra 1K, which is very, very strong in aggro decks. So all these zero cost events are very strong. We have 2 Mulligan as well, just to get around pesky units like 8 cost Kid or pop troublesome units. And this card is actually searchable off of, I believe, 2 different cards. It's searchable off Observation Hockey right here, and it's also searchable off of, I'm not going to pronounce that. But if you want more Mulligan, you can consider going up to 3, but this is based off the Japan winner list. Or was it runner up? I think Japan runner up, and they tend to use 2. And then there's also Sabody here. Sabody, I'm not too sure how I feel about this card. I don't really think it's necessary, but I do understand it, right? Just having an extra search to find like Sanji or Zoro will go a long way. So I think it's fair enough to consider. And then one of the very key cards in this new Rayleigh deck is going to be this Luffy here. This card's absolutely insane. So when you have 2 or more attached Dawn cards, you get to give it +2K, and on play you get to reveal 2 cards to play a 3K or less character from your hand. So one of the perfect pairs here is going to be playing Luffy and Sanji. But don't worry, even if you can't play Luffy and Sanji, you can play like Luffy and Buggy, or against decks that starve you can also play Luffy and this Sanji as well. I think this is going to be the new king of aggro, and I think it could be relevant in the meta. It has pretty good matchups. I know into like GP and Green Zoro has pretty good matchups. So we'll have to see if this deck can still beat those even while those decks are taking for it. But with that being said, let's go ahead and take a brief look at the meta. This is a brief look at the top of the meta and what I expect to be relevant. I'll be making a more fleshed out tier list video with more tiers belong S through A in the future, and some of these positions might even change from then. But basically, this is like kind of my day one impression. So first of all, I think the main winner here is going to be Bonnie, thanks to Blue Purple Luffy seemingly being out of the meta. Bonnie seems like a real winner here because ACOS Kid is going to go very strong. I think Bonnie can do pretty well into literally like all three of these decks here. I think Bonnie can do pretty solid into. I think has a potential of doing solid into Lucci too. Depending on deck list, you're pretty good against Sanel. And then Shanks is, I don't know about Shanks. Shanks versus Bonnie, I don't really know. I imagine it's a skill diff matchup, but I would not be surprised if it's Shanks' favor. But I do think Bonnie is going to be one of the main winners here. Next up, we have Green Purple Luffy. Green Purple Luffy is in a very interesting position because I think um it seems like it struggles into Bonnie and Rayleigh, but depending on what you include in your GP Luffy deck, it might be able to actually overtake all three of these decks. So I think it really depends on where GP Luffy ends up, right? Because GP Luffy was kind of struggling a bit against UP decks. Against UP decks at Star was very hard to win as GP Luffy, and you had to make your deck a certain way because of it. But now that the deck list has more freedom, I do think it still has S tier potential. But if it does end up just getting fried by all of these, then GP Luffy will likely like fall off a bit. But I do think it has the potential to keep up, especially on a good draw. Next up, Rayleigh. Rayleigh is another very interesting deck here. I think you have pretty good matchups into GP Luffy and Green Zoro. Whoa. Whoa, wow, okay, GP Luffy just vanished. All right. I think you have pretty good matchups into GP Luffy and Zoro, but I do think you have a pretty concerning Bonnie matchup. Rayleigh is another one of those decks where I do think the deck list might change a bit to adapt to like a Bonnie meta, like maybe you include more Mulgun and stuff like that. But I'm not quite sure that it's enough, especially because you don't have minus to combine with the Mulgun. So Mulgun's only popping 7Ks. I think Rayleigh's kind of just dodge Bonnie and go crazy, but because I have a high opinion of Bonnie, I'm not too sure about this deck. I think it really depends on Bonnie's popularity where this will be, but I do think it's pretty solid aside from the Bonnie matchup. And then we have Lucci and Shanks. Lucci is a deck I almost wanted to place into S, but I'm just not quite sure at the moment. Like the Green Zoro matchup is questionable. I'm not sure how consistent your GP matchup is, and I think Bonnie has new lines that might be strong into this deck. Bonnie even has a new card that can protect Cavendish as well, but I think Lucci just needs to be figured out. I think after it gets solved a little bit more, I think this deck could potentially go up and maybe even lower like Rayleigh's position, for example, but it's kind of hard to say at the moment. Shanks is another deck where I love to hate on Shanks, but I gotta give credit where credit is due. Shanks is likely also going to be a really good deck here. It's another deck that I would even consider putting up here. I just don't want to jump the gun on it. I just feel a little more comfortable just putting it at A in the moment. But by the time my tier list video, I wouldn't be surprised if this does change. I know traditionally there was a Shanks build that is really good into Green Purple Zoro. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to be pretty good into Bonnie. Zoro is kind of questionable, but there is a new Shanks that should be very, very strong against the Zoro matchup. Being able to discard anything to give plus 2K is insane. So, like, let's say you play this card on 4 and Zoro, like, rests this down on their 5 down turn, right? You can give minus 1K to leader, boom. Now it's a 7K swinging at 6K, and you can just easily counter out, which is very convenient. In A minus, I put Anel. So Anel's a deck a lot of people have been gassing up. They're like, yo, it beats like Rayleigh and stuff like that. But I do think this deck is likely going to be just overrated as usual. I think it'll be like a nice yellow get lucky deck as usual, but I don't think it's actually going to be that strong in actuality. I think Jack from Lucci is still a problem. Green decks playing 9 Kazoro. Like literally any of these decks could tech 9 Kazoro if Anel actually becomes a threat, and then Anel is just going to lose on the spot. So like with that alone, I already think it's sketchy, and I'm already not even sure how well Anel does into these decks regardless of them having 9 Kazoro. Aside from this Zoro deck, I think Zoro actually probably needs 9 Kazoro to beat Anel, but like I'm worried about Anel into like all of these. So I put in fake A minus because it's definitely a huge skill diff deck as well. I think as Anel, you have the potential to beat all of these decks, but if you're playing against like a really good player on these decks, I'm not quite sure you're winning against any of these except Rayleigh, but might be a hot take, not sure. And then we also have, lastly, we have the wild cards and good but gate kept. So Sakazuki, I think this leader's unbanned. A lot of people are not sure why you would play this over Lucci. I personally think that there's a decent amount of incentives to play this over Lucci, and I will be personally exploring this leader, and I do think that it does have potential. Blue Green Zoro Sanji, I don't know too much about this deck. I've just heard people been going crazy with it recently. I know I saw a tweet the other day where a really good European player performed really well with it. So it's definitely a deck to look out for. And then lastly, we have Purple Luffy, which I think this deck's good. I just think it's pretty much just gate kept by a lot of these decks here. Like I think 8 Kid is still a problem. I think 9 Zoro is a problem. I think taking life against Green Zoro is also a problem. I think Rayleigh being an aggro deck is a problem. So I'm not quite sure Purple Luffy's in the best position, but maybe there's a deck list I'm not aware of that will allow it to do better. Last time I'm going to show y'all some cards you should definitely pick up from this set or look into for deck building. So the first card here is Shanks. I think the Shanks is absolutely insane for the Shanks deck. One of Shanks' main issues was just getting caught up with a bunch of bricks in hand. So having a blocker that can also discard these bricks for 2k counter value is absolutely nuts. Next up, we have Mihawk. This is probably everybody's favorite card of the set. Green, it's just a very powerful card for green, right? Like a 4 cost AK blocker is absolutely insane. This card's going to go wild with Waterfall, and also being able to play this card alongside cards like Cavendish on 9 Dawn is insane. Next up, we have Dead Man's Game. They put Hody Jones on an event, man. And not only did they put it on an event, it's a searchable event. Like in the green purple Luffy deck, this card is searchable. In the Zoro deck, this card is still searchable. Like this card's just definitely one of the main winners of the set. So green's eating good right now for sure. Miss All Sunday. I read this wrong, bro. I'm gonna just on to the next. Kuma's also a very insane card as well. I think one of yellow's biggest issues against black is it's just kind of easy for them to always blow up your board. In this case, this card becomes 8 cost on play, which makes it hard to deal with. And then when they finally do KO it, you're going to be able to actually add a life. So this Kuma is going to be very, very huge for yellow decks into black. And I think just having a 6 cost heal card in general is going to be very strong as well. Next up, Bonnie, definitely one of the main winners as well. Like Bonnie also had not as bad of an issue as Shanks when it comes to bricks. But like Bonnie has a lot of unsearchable big characters, so having extra draw to be able to get to those characters is going to be very nice, and even just being able to discard some of those bricks out of her hand is going to be very, very strong as well. And then lastly, I think that was actually it. Oh no, no, here it is. Lastly, the Sport Cost Red Luffy. I think this card is absolutely insane for the Rayleigh deck. I looked at Rayleigh a little bit and I was a bit like, okay, these cards are strong, but I feel like it's missing something. And I just didn't read this card yet. This is the card the deck is missing. Being able to play like Sanji and Luffy off the rip is insane. This card becoming 6k is insane. Like just a very, very impressive card. So that's it for the cards I like. Let's debrief. That's it for the OP12 preparation. I hope some of those deck lists can help y'all out. Obviously, we're still early into the meta and stuff like that, so a lot of stuff is going to change. Deck lists will probably change. The meta will change as we get into tournaments. But let me know if there's any decks in the top 4 that you guys think should be switched, or if there's like another deck that's off my radar that I need to get aware of, because I still need to get to testing and stuff like that too. I'm just hoping this is a good starting point for all of us. And with that being said, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.